Hello and welcome to another scrapbooking process video. Today I am making the most time-consuming insert that I have ever made. I actually did some of the prep work and planning for this during the time that I was scrapbooking the layout that you see at the top of the screen, that fills up most of the screen. I did that at the beginning. So what I did was I realized I had some photos and stories to tell from my daughter's moving. She moved apartments it was her first move from one apartment to another apartment. And it was a lot of work over a period of 2 weeks for our family and for her. Mostly for her, but also for us. And so I wanted to make sure that I documented it because I remember the days of moving house or moving apartments, and I don't have any photos to document it. So I thought it might be fun for her to have this captured. So I have this Lawn Fawn die. It's called the Lawn Fawn Peekaboo backdrop die, and it is designed to be the size of the front of a typical standard A2 card. And so it is not the right size for a 4x6 pocket or for 4x6 cards or anything, but it is close to 4x6. And so what is it again? It's 5.5 by 4.25. I think that's the size of an A2 card. I can't quite remember. I don't card make often enough. I also want to add a little stamp to the plate of Liv's, of the photo of Liv's plate there. So I will try to remember to do that as well. I'm not sure if that made it into the video, but I did remember to do it on the day that I was scrapbooking. So one thing that I had initially decided was to overlap two of those frames together to make I guess like a vertical card that is double-sided that has little holes in both sides. And one of the things that I decided in between when I started this project and then I completed that full layout that you see at the top of my table, and then afterwards I was thinking about it and thought, I think that that's going to be too crowded with photos and there's not going to be enough space for design elements. So I decided to actually layer 3 of these frames on each side. So for a total of 6 of these frames for the entire insert, because little did I know when I made this decision that this project just wasn't going to be long enough for me. I spent about probably 40 minutes at the beginning of the layout that you see, just kind of deciding and picking photos and measuring and figuring all that stuff out. And now I spent all morning and part of the afternoon working on this. So it's at 4 times the speed. So you're going to see it in about an hour, which is a pretty long process video, but I know some of you guys like the longer ones. So if you do, this is for you. So I'm just running through the die set. This is the main die. That gives you the border, and it also gives you those little rectangles and squares, and I'll be coming back to those towards the end because I am going to be including 2 little flip elements in this, which I probably would not have chosen if I knew how long this was going to take me, because they don't add that much. They add a little bit, but yeah, it's I'm glad I have them. I could have changed my mind at the end and I didn't, so they must have been worthwhile. So this is how the insert is going to look. It is a little bit more than 12 inches, so I got it in my head that it's too big. I'm going to have to be careful about how I mount it in the book. It turns out it's not too big because once you factor in the sizes of the pockets, it's actually exactly the same height as a pocketed page protector, so it's going to be okay. I was worrying about something that I didn't even really need to worry about. So the first things first is I am going to layer each of these. I'm just going to glue them together so that I can work with them as a single unit. So here's the front. And my thought process here is that, and the glue that I'm using, if you're curious, is Art Glitter Designer Adhesive Dries Clear. Now here's the back side of these, because I realized that these are not going to line up because of the shape of them. the way that it alternates between the squares and rectangles, I was thinking that when you turned it over, it would look like this, but it won't, unless if I was willing to have the back side be that rough edge that I just showed on the screen a minute ago. And I don't really want that. So that really complicates things. And this project probably would have been quite a bit less time consuming if these were symmetrical frames, if they were all squares or rectangles in a way that worked the same on the front and the back. But as you can see, they are not the same on the front and the back. So for any of my little peekaboo elements where I want to use either acetate or vellum, it turns out it's going to be vellum, but at the time I wasn't sure what I was going to do. Any of those little peekaboo elements is going to have to take into consideration, especially the rectangular ones. Again, if I had only chosen to do square peekaboo elements, it would have been easier, but I don't like making my life easy. I like challenge, apparently. So I did have these photos pre-printed to the size that fits in the pockets, and I had it all documented in a little notebook that you'll see pop up every once in a while. I keep a field notes book for these sorts of things, and the size of these, if you're curious, if you happen to have this die, is the squares are 1 1/3 by 1 3/4 by 1 3/4, and the rectangles are 1 3/4 by 3 inches. So I printed my photos that big, and then I just made sure to leave that white outline so that I'd have something to glue the photos onto. So although these photos are going to be adhered to the backs of these frames, in order for me to just design this and decide what's going to go where, I'm just laying them on top so that I don't have to reach under every time I change my mind about something. It's going to take me a little while to figure out how to fit all of these photos in here, so that's part of the process. I do share my whole process, so you'll be able to see me bumble around with this and try to decide how to get it balanced. Right now, I feel like the first page is balanced, but I'm still working on figuring out whether I'm going to have the photo of her in front of her new apartment, if that's going to be the top of the second page, which really makes good sense from a storytelling perspective, but it might not work with the number of photos I have, because I have way more photos of her new apartment and the settling in process than I have of kind of like the move from the old apartment. I also do not have any photos of the completed project at this point. I do have some now of the living room all moved in and her bedroom all moved in and the kitchen all moved in, but they're not part of this insert, because this insert is from the 2 days that we spent moving her out and moving her back in. So the move actually took place on a Friday. I was working, so I wasn't there for that, but I got the photos from Scott and from Liv, and then the Saturday, which I was there for the whole day Saturday. So I'm messing around with it, and again, working with what I have and trying to decide. Some of these I'm going to be using the flips. So this frame does come with 2 different versions of openings, and I'm using one of them. So the frame comes with another set that looks like a door, like a double door opening or a window opening. But I like the one that has the little tab on it and with a single flap instead of 2 flaps. So that's the one that I'm using. So here I'm just trying to decide, I'm lining them up in mirror image of each other so that when they're back to back, the holes will be in the same place, if that makes sense. So yeah, I'm trying to put the photos in a way that they're roughly symmetrical. Keep in mind that not every one of the blank spaces that you see on the table right in front of you are going to necessarily be clear, right? So I want a couple of vellum pieces. It turns out I'm going to go for 3 vellum windows in here, but I want to keep all my options open. So here's how you make the little flips. You just put the die centered in those little cutout pieces that came that were left over from the frame. And then that gives you a little insert that you can just, it flushly fits in the little holes without any gaps or anything. It looks really great, actually. It's very seamless looking. These are, it turns out, these are only going to go on the flip side, so on the back side, which is the right-hand side of what you see there. So I just ran that through twice because I knew I thought I wanted 2 squares and 1 rectangle, but it turns out I'm just going to use 2 squares. So I didn't, well, yeah, I did need to run it through twice. I just didn't need to use the rectangles. I'm putting this all aside just in case I change my mind and decide to add more. And good morning to Harmony, who is joining us on the live stream. Yeah, I sometimes will post the greetings on there just so everybody can see them. I am now going to place all of the photos on my desk in the order in which I plan to put them in the frames, and then I'm going to put them in the frames. And my process, which you will see multiple times here, is to put the glue around the outside edges of the back side and then turn it over. And while I'm holding it in the air, I just arrange the photo so that you can't see any of the little white edges. It's a little tricky to do this because the photos are printed to exactly the right size. So if they're off even just a little tiny bit, you will see the white edge of the photo. And I really don't want that, especially given the black, bold nature of the frame. I think that the white edges, if they were showing, would really show up next to that black. So I am being very cautious with the way that I do this. And this glue, one of the things I love about this glue is how quickly it tacks up and takes hold. So that means you've got a second there, a couple of seconds to just smoosh your photo around if it's in the wrong space. You've got just enough time to just wiggle it around a little bit, and then the glue tacks up and your window for moving it is gone. But the good thing about that is that you can then handle this insert the way that I'm doing without worrying about the photos popping off. Like the ones that you've already glued on are not going to pop off because they do tack up and adhere very, very quickly. So I am just going to repeat that entire process here. And again, I'm making sure that these are the reverse or the the reverse order of like the mirror image of each other so that some of those holes will line up once the two are smooshed together. If what I'm saying doesn't make perfect sense, I hope that it does once you see what I mean when I put them together. There will be some places where the holes line up, and that's what I'm wanting to have happen. So this one is going to be a pocket, and I'm just thinking about how am I going to do this? Am I going to put the photo in there like that? Yeah, I need to reprint that photo because so much of that flip will cover the photo that it's going to be a little bit hard to know what that is. What it is a dresser inside of the closet that she was really hoping that she could fit her dresser in the closet. And when we measured it, we knew it was going to be tight, and we knew that the drawers wouldn't open all the way, but we thought they'd open enough that she could still use the dresser. But they really just didn't open enough. So we had to move it out of the closet, but that's okay. What else are you going to do on your Saturday afternoon besides move a dresser multiple times? It's fun. I had so much fun. We laughed so hard at so many things and had so many little inside jokes that developed as a result of this. What I'm doing here is I'm actually gluing what I'm thinking of as like the outside frame to the photo, and then that leaves a little white edge because the outside frame is bigger than the photo. So then I put glue along the outside edge of that photo and glued it in place like that. And now this inset flip has the photo already in it. So that is how I decided to do that. There might be multiple ways to do these things, but this worked for me, so I just kept doing it the way that I was doing it because I wasn't running into any big problems doing it this way. So as you can see, it really comes together. It really does. Even if you wanted to skip the headache-inducing elements that I'm adding to this to this insert, if you just included photos and then put maybe patterned paper or lined paper or something on the insides of it, it would be a really beautiful insert without the interactive elements. So I'm just repeating the same process of gluing the outside frame or that piece to the photo and then putting the glue on the extra edges of the photo and aligning that insert so that it fits in there perfectly. There's not even a gap. You can't even really tell that it's an insert. So I have another photo to put right here. It's a very close-up photo of her little tiny rectangle window that's way up high in her living room. There's a picture of the living room right above it, and you can see the little rectangle. So here's what I mean by the see-through elements. So when it's in place, you'll be able to see a little bit through those elements because I'm going to be putting vellum, so it's not going to be completely see-through. At this point, I decide, let's make our item that's going to hold this thing in this insert into the 3-ring binder of my Project Life album. And so what I decided to do was take a piece of acetate. I have an 8.5 by 11 inch piece of acetate here. If you're wondering about that 6-hold thing that I just had in my hand there, that's an Ali Edwards insert. I forget what she calls those things, but it's for making things into inserts for your 6-ring album. But this is not a 6-ring album. I thought it might be useful to either use that or at least have it out on my desk as a template, but I decided to not use it. So what you saw me do there was I put, using a Sharpie marker, I marked out where the holes will go for a 3-ring binder, and then I punched the holes using my We Are Memory Keepers hole punch, the 1/4-inch hole punch, and then I rounded the corners of it just because I find that acetate, those corners can be pretty sharp, and I didn't want it to be sharp. I'm going to cut this in half because it's too long. I want it to disappear into in between the items. Now I'm aware that it's too long in places, so it's going to show in some of the holes, but I'll deal with that later. I can always trim it down later, and you'll see me do that at the very, very end of this. So I have this problem where it's a square hole on one side and it's a rectangle hole on the other side. And that means that I have to be kind of creative with what I do with those 2 holes. 2 of them are going to be like that. And yeah, actually 3 of them are going to be, they're all going to be like that because of course it's impossible for them not to. Every square is always going to have a rectangle behind it. That's the problem that I have. So I am having a look at some of the vellum elements that have come in recent kits. So I have the Ali Edwards April Stories by the Month kit, but I also have the one from March and the one from February and the one from January, probably all here. And I'm just pulling out various little elements. I also have the Basics kit from Ali Edwards. It's a quarterly kit, and I have 2 of those as well. So there's this one and that one. I have a few other things in with this one. It's just a few other basics. And it turns out that these little square cards that came in the Basics kit, the very first Ali Edwards Basics quarterly kit, those squares are exactly the same size as these squares that I'm using, only I just wish that the frame on them was just a little bit wider because you can barely see the color, but you can see the color and it does add something worthwhile. So I could have probably more easily framed those little squares with just plain white paper, but I do really like what the little tiny smidgen of an edge of color gives to the spread. And you'll see that when I get to it. So I picked those out, but before I use them, I'm going to work on this instead. So I've got this little hole that's going to hold my title, but as you can see, when I put the vellum there, that black bar that I'm putting glue on right now is really distracting. You can see it through the vellum. So I'm just taking a scrap. It's one of the squares that I'm sacrificing. I've got so many of those squares. I just decided it's conveniently exactly the right size. So I'll just cut it and I will, oops, I don't know what I did wrong there. I did something wrong. Oh yeah, it wasn't big enough. You could see where it ended. So I decided to just take a full square, sacrifice, now I've sacrificed 2 of them, but 2 of these squares so that it's just easier because it's becoming clear that this project is more than I bargained for, to say the least. So I'm going to keep those cut green squares because I could use them as partial labels someplace. This chunk of this vellum looks really cute, and I'm going to put that as most of the filler for this first rectangle card. I'm going to position it like that. I like how it looks with mostly clear, but then the little floral design towards the bottom. I'm going to adhere that pretty much similar to how I did before, but it's a little bit easier for me to do it, just lay it on the desk and then position my frame the way I need it to be. So now we have that, and when you layer the 2 of them, it's now layered on a plain white background on the kind of the side of it there. So that's where my title is going to go. I want to spell out the words moving day. I like those letter stickers, but I think they're too big. What I like about these red and green ones, I don't love that they're red and green. It's not a Christmas layout, but you know, you can use that color scheme for more than just Christmas. But what I like about them is that they're both a similar, if not the exact same, chunky font. One of them is uppercase and one of them is lowercase, but they coordinate really, really well together. So I knew I'd have trouble fitting the word moving in such a tiny little space. These letter stickers are fairly forgiving, so I'm just scooching them over so that they're really overlapping with one another, but still in a legible kind of a way. So there we have moving, and they're actually staying stuck quite well. I'm going to sew them down because I have enough experience with mini albums to know that no matter how well stuck something is, they seem to eventually give out. And so I like to, anything that can be handled like this, I like to, because it's not going to be inside of a pocket, I like to do something, either staple it or sew it. So I will be sewing that, but not quite yet because I actually haven't decided if I like it. Spoiler alert, I end up liking it and leaving it, or maybe I just didn't want to make a new one. I don't know, but I like it. I like it. It picks up nicely on the square red, on the rectangle on the U-Haul moving van. So as you can see, I zoomed in a little bit so that you can see the tiny little impact that the red border gives to these squares. So squares that don't have a photo and are not see-through are going to be filled in with those little squares and then some type of an embellishment or journaling or something. Thinking about just using the let's go part of this, which is kind of fits with the idea of moving, but it's not exactly the right color. It's that really bright pink, which is not quite right. I like the font in that quote, and I like the idea of using it just as a typewritten pattern instead of as a message because it's a writing related quote. But I'm going to choose a part of it that it includes how we live and where we sit or something like that. So this little chipboard piece is just from my stash. It says looking for the good in the middle of the mess. And I'm going to put a little sticker on there. These are little puffy asterisks from a previous Ellie Edwards kit. I think one of her scrapbooking kits. And I will be adding to that cell pretty soon because I don't exactly love it the way it is. First, let's cut a chunk of this font to fill one of the squares. So we'll just add the glue and then we'll just place it down. And because it's liquid glue, we have a little bit of wiggle time that we can just move it around and get it lined up the way we want it to be. Oh, I like how that looks over top of something. That chipboard piece was just missing a little something, so I wanted something vertical, a vertical element, so I added that row of stars on the washi tape, but now there's too much gold there, and also the yellow on the flowers above is kind of goldish, so I decided to go with a red asterisk or star, whatever you call that. I'm going to staple it now. Again, there's nothing on the other side to keep me from doing things like sewing and stapling on until I kind of glue those two pieces together. So we're going to line this little square with, I thought about lining this little square with some green, but I'm going to decide to move that because it aligns with that hole. So let's put some vellum in that one. I'm thinking maybe this piece of vellum right here. So let's just cut that. I made a little cut mark so that I could know roughly what size it needs to be. So we'll put that there. And these three pieces of vellum are spread enough around the page. They're a little on the top, like it would be better if one of them was further down, but it just so happened that this is the way that it was going to work. I was just commenting on how long this process was taking. So we're 27 minutes into the video, and remember that this is 4 times the speed. So, and we're nowhere near done, but we're getting there. I guess we're at about the halfway point. It was, I was really, really enjoying it. It's not like I didn't like how long it was taking because I was having a really good time. If I wasn't doing this, I'd be doing something else. And this was, I liked the puzzly feeling of this, like piecing things together and working with, angles and challenges with covering up things that you don't want to see from the other side. And yeah, it was overall, it was pretty fun. So I did put that green square down in this little cell, and I put that circle, the chipboard circle that is from an older Ellie Edwards kit from quite some time ago. It went with the Happy Easter one, so it was from another year when Easter was in April. And I had this die cut piece that said, it was actually part of a card that I cut off, and it said make it happen, and it had a place for the date. And I decided to not use that. Here I am just kind of experimenting with, it felt like it needed something a little bit dimensional. So I took out my dimensional embellishments, which I'm in the process of rejigging how I organize my dimensional embellishments. But for now I have them in these little trays from IKEA. I forget the name of them. I have everything from fabric to felt to those kind of molded capuchon things, bows, flare badges, and then these little things. I have 3 sets of these in my stash. 1 set came in a kit, and then I bought 2 sets because they were on sale, and I really love felt and anything with a stitched word, embroidered things. I love them, and they're things that I can't make on my own, so I find them worth the investment, but they were really cheap. So I think they were $2 each or $1 for a set of them. So I put one of those on there. It says loving this. I'm going to put in progress right on the U-Haul van. I'm using score tape to hold these in place because, again, this is an outside of the pocket project. So there's nothing to hold these in place. If they let go, they're not going to be held down by a pocket or anything. Now I do want to point to the fact that this photo is so tiny that you might not notice it, but off to the edge here, those are my girls walking down the street. They look like just randos in the background, but they are not. So I'm just putting a arrow with that's an Allie Edwards arrow set. Oh, it might not be Allie Edwards. It might be Kelly Perky, but I love that stamp set. Very handy to have arrows in all different sizes that you can then ink up in all different colors. It's a very versatile set. I felt like this needed something else black. And so I went with this chunky wood veneer. It's quite a thick wood veneer. It says good things take time. And that is a good mantra for moving and also for doing very elaborate inserts. So I have this bottom rectangle to still fill, and my squares were not the right size, of course, but I found that if I cut one of the squares and layered it with another, luckily these are all, I have doubles of all of these. There's 2 of each. So I am going to line it up like this. I started with the one that was cut, and then I'm going to layer the one that was not cut in behind it. I should have put one more layer of glue there, but that's okay because my journaling, I'm actually going to print my journaling out onto sticker paper, and that sticker paper will cover up that divide. See how there's a line down the middle that you can see that it's a cut card? Oftentimes I will make that line be way over to the side so you can't notice it, but in this case I made it in the middle. I didn't care that it was in the middle. It had to be because it's a square card, and I knew that I would be putting a journaling on top of it with a sticker. So I just printed that with my Picturemate, my PM400 by Epson. And, you know, I kind of wish I had trimmed it a little bit with a bit more of a border on the top and bottom to cover even more of that cut, but it's okay. So now the front page is done and I'm feeling really good about it. So let's flip her over and work on the back side. And the back side is, well, you know, it's a challenge because we've got little places where there's a square, where there's a rectangle, but there's only a square of see-through there. So yeah, we've got the same problems on the other side as we have on the first side, but we have a bit more experience in solving those problems. My first thought was maybe I could use one of these labels that came in the April Stories by the Month kit to cover up that rectangle, but I didn't like how that looked. Too much of the rectangle was showing. I'm going to use this piece of scrap paper that I used for the late April Project Life page that I did. I cut the saying out of the middle of it, and I had leftover yellow paper on either side. So we'll take that like that, and what that will do is it will cover the black edge that shows through on this side, just like that. And then I'm going to put this banner. The banner says looking good. And just to add a little bit of detail to it, I thought about running it through a punch to make it a scalloped edge, but then I thought because I'm trying so hard to cover something black underneath and you might see the little edges of the black if I cut it out anyways, I thought I might as well just outline it in, like make a drawn on scalloped edge. It looks handmade and hand-drawn. It's not perfect. It doesn't have to be perfect. And I like how it looks. It's something different for me. I don't usually do those sorts of things, so sometimes I like to mix it up. So that is how that one will look. And it's interesting how the scrapbooking of this one has to take place on the back side of the piece that's already done. Now, right below it, I have another exact same problem, and I'm going to think about a variety of different ways to solve that problem before I end up landing on just basically doing the same thing. So while I think on that, let's just fill in some of these other holes. So we'll add a red frame to this hole. And I'm going to put New Beginnings right here on the photo of her room. I thought about putting Not Good on the photo of the kitchen cabinets. The kitchen cabinets are all ruined from, there must have been a flood or a leak or something. They're horrible and they definitely need to be replaced. We're just waiting to see what the landlord says about that. And we'll see what we do based on what the landlord says. Hopefully the landlord will be very reasonable and agree that that is not a livable situation. I will get back to you on the outcome of that. I would love to put a circle in this square because it is what I did on the other side. So it kind of pulls that design element over to the next side. So I found a couple of that sun place one is obviously not relevant, but I like the color of it. So we're going to layer it with another one. The other one says live in the moment and has a tiny, tiny little heart in the center of it. So I'm going to use score tape to glue these patches down just like I did on the other side. I'm using 1/4 inch score tape. It's really strong. These are not going to come off, not going anywhere. And I did want that to overlap with the other cell, but I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't going to interfere with the lift the flap element. So I just put it over enough that it wasn't covering. Then we will layer this circle on top of the other chipboard circle. And then I just wanted a heart with a little bit more impact than that teeny little one. That's way too bright of a blue. It seems kind of jarring. So I'm looking for a navy blue heart and I found one from my little small collection of puffy hearts and puffy stickers. Those were all from various kits as well. Now I'd love to repeat this element of the wood veneer that was on the other side, but I'm still not sure how or if I can do that. So let's put the Good Times patch on here. This is just a little felt patch with Good Times sewn in like an embroidered kind of a way. We'll put that right beside her going into her house, into her apartment, I should say. So at this point, we're almost done, believe it or not. It doesn't look like it when it's laid out on my desk like this, but basically that rectangle that I can't decide what to do with, I'm just going to leave that and work on the 2 flip elements on this page. And then we'll come back to that last rectangle. That'll be the last thing I have to do. So I do want to reprint the photo of Liv with the drill over her head, installing her curtains. And I want it to be able to fit on the top of that pocket. And so I reprinted it at exactly the same size as the pocket. And that was actually too small. So what you're going to see is I'm going to grab one of those. Remember at the very beginning when I had templates that I had basically run the die through with a cheaper kind of black paper. And so I just grabbed those again because I wanted to see how it would feel without I didn't want to have to potentially ruin. It turns out I wouldn't have ruined it, but I didn't know that when I grabbed it. So just grabbed a spare little flip piece so that I could do that. And it turns out that when I trace that shape, there's a little bit of the white from the edge of the photo showing there. So whoops, I don't want to do that. I actually want to print this photo a little bit taller than it is wide so that I can have that little dip in the photo. That's the tab that you in theory, I guess, kind of pull up. So I ended up cutting that little flap off of the spare piece that I had that was cut out of less quality cardstock at the very beginning of this video. And then I traced it and then I cut around it, just cutting so that I'm cutting on the inside of those tracing lines so that there are no lines on the photo. It's just cut out. Now I'm going to use adhesive here, liquid adhesive, and I'm being pretty generous with it and making sure that I go from edge to edge, but it is a non-porous surface, right? So a photo is a very slick surface. So I said generous, but not too generous. I just wanted to make sure it went edge to edge, but if you put too much glue in there, it's gonna ooze. We don't want that. And now I'm thinking about what I might want to put on the inside of that flip, because if you're flipping it up to look underneath, and underneath you see the photo of her room with everything. Basically, there was so much stuff to put in the room that you couldn't open the door fully when you went in there until we moved things around. I want to be able to see that, but I don't want just black on the back of that. So at this point, I start thinking about that rectangle again. I'm still thinking about what I might want to do with that. And am I going to do it now, or am I going to finish the flip? I can't remember. It was just yesterday, but I can't remember which order I did. So I am looking for something to put on the back sides of those two flips. I know I have two of them, and I'm going to take these little labels, and I'm going to do the same thing I did with one of the square labels, which is I'm just making a mark for how wide it needs to be. I'm trimming it off, and then I'm going to layer it on top of itself so that it is a smaller little rectangle, almost a square. I made it a smidgen too long, so let's just trim it down a little bit. And that fits perfectly under that flap. And it just gives me a little place to put a few words. So there it is. And then I'll make another one because I know I'll have something that needs to go on one side or the other side of that other flip at the top. So I'm just doing the exact same thing again with the yellow label, making it exactly the same size. And see how this time I made that cut line be way over to the side so that's right beside the color. And that way it's less noticeable than it was on that other one that I put the sticker across. So I'm putting time to unpack. There's a little bit of extra space there, so I'm just going to draw a couple of little hearts, a little cluster of handwritten hearts. My glue was clogging up there. Again, because this is going to be handled, I want to go pretty generous on the glue. I went a little too generous, so I had to sop some of it up there. I didn't want any oozing, but I did want it to be really glued down quite well, because a flap is handled even more than other parts of this project will be handled. I have this phrase, and it says all journeys begin with small steps, because her room, like you had to start somewhere. It felt really overwhelming at first, and then we just kind of got started, and before you know it, we were done. So there we go. I mean, she did most of it, but we just helped her with the two-person part. She did a lot of it on Sunday herself. I helped move the things into her closet, though. I hung all of her clothes on hangers. So this one says dresser in closet wasn't working, so we changed it up. And then I managed to find a little chipboard circle that says yes and no on it. I'll show you. I just glue that down, and now at some point I'm going to grab my chipboard elements and think maybe I can put a piece of chipboard under there. Thought about putting that patch, but it really didn't make a whole lot of sense. I can't remember what it said, but it didn't say anything that made any sense. So I'm looking for whatever else I might want to put in there. It says in progress. I don't know. I don't love that. Just looking at what I have in my dimensional embellishments, my loose dimensional embellishments. Any number of things could go under here. I'm just looking for something that feels right. It works with the story and the color scheme and all that. So I don't think I'll use any of those. They might be a little bit two-dimensional too for something that is supposed to lay, in theory, kind of flat. I'm not putting magnets or anything in these. They're too tiny, and I think that the fact that they automatically flip up, there's that chipboard piece. I just grabbed it. It was one of the first things I saw in there, a green chipboard piece that says yes/no. So I'm taking a red pen, and I'm just going to circle no. And are you guys like me? It doesn't matter how casually I try to circle. Whenever I have to circle something, it always looks wonky. It never looks like a nice, casual rounded circle. It's always bumpy and off and weird looking. I don't know. Anyhow, it is what it is, and it's my circle handwriting, so it's fine. We are always our own worst critics. I like this. So yeah, this is me trying to solve that problem of the very last hole that's a rectangle that's supposed to be a square. So I need to fill in this little space over here. And a lot of these ideas really appealed to me. I liked the idea of that piece of chipboard. I really liked the look of this flap or banner piece or whatever this is. And I thought I could put something on the outside of it, like maybe a piece of chipboard or a phrase or a acrylic piece, or I didn't know what, but it felt like it really worked there. So I'm looking for the little piece of yellow paper that I'm missing, because despite the fact that I'm going to use that banner, I thought, well, let's just put a piece of yellow paper under there just to cover up. Again, we need to cover up the black piece that shows from the frame behind. So it's going to be sandwiched between the two. You're not going to see it. So I'm just going to slap a piece of paper over top of that. There we go. And I do like that, especially once there's something on that banner. I don't know what it'll be, but there'll be something on that banner. I'm actually surprised at how much I like that. It looks quite good. However, let's see if maybe a different color will work even better than the yellow. It just felt like it was kind of a lot of yellow. I have a whole humongous set of these banners. They're all exactly the same size and shape, but they have different finishes on them. So I found the yellow one's sister flags, and so we have options now. Pink puts too much pink on the bottom of this. There's already a lot of pink on the bottom, but orange is the one that I felt worked the best. It wasn't as, repeating yellow as the other one would be. And then I thought, don't forget, I wanted to use one of these because we have one on the other side. And once I put this here, I really liked it a lot more than I liked the banner. It was an easy choice to make. It's always nice when you've got a little challenge and you're not sure what to do. Sometimes the longer you wait, the more options you kind of see. I also thought about just adding a makeshift frame here. I felt like I didn't need it. It would have been an option. It had the stitched edges on it because I just cut it from one of the spare pieces. And Moira agreed with me that she didn't think I needed it. So we'll just go without it. So there we go. Now we have our insert almost done. All that I need to do is insert the insert mechanism. So the thing that's going to add the 3 holes on the edge. And I'm going to cut this down so that it doesn't interfere with the triangular banner that says looking good. I just eyeballed it and chopped it down. And here I am making a very big mistake. I'm putting score tape on the top and bottom where it's not see-through, and then I'm going to glue this down. But I'm gluing it to the wrong side because the piece that's showing right there is actually the back, not the front. And then it occurs to me, at some point it occurs to me, I've done this wrong. It's before I do this. So now I'm thinking about putting the 2 of them together, and I'm putting the score tape down, and then I'm thinking, wait a minute, I should probably use liquid glue because I'm going to want to scooch these together and make them perfect. I'm going to want to smush them, right? So I thought, wait a second, let's make let's make sure that we use liquid glue here. So I pulled off the score tape that I had just put on. And also I remembered, wait, wasn't I going to sew on my title? So let's pull out the sewing machine and add our stitching there. My sewing machine was already loaded, and through the magic of video, that was done just like that, but it was already loaded with red thread, and I didn't want to change it, so I just went with the red thread. And I don't know at what point I'm going to realize that it is on backwards, but here, I think this is where. I'm like, wait a minute. You can see me pause. This is not a freeze frame. I actually was stunned. I was like, wait a second. So I very gently peeled it off. It's a good thing that these acetate pieces are so strong, right? So I pulled it off and I'm going to re-adhere it right there. I just wanted to get all of the score tape off of it. And I am going to make almost exactly the same mistake again. Where, yeah, so far so good. I don't know if I cut it out, but I did almost glue it on wrong. I might have cut out that part. But yeah, I caught myself. And also Moira was in the live stream chat saying, no. Yeah. So maybe that was the part right there where I don't know what I was doing there. Like, wait a second, don't accidentally glue it on wrong. Yeah, there she says no. All right. So now I am pretty sure I know what I'm doing. And I also lined it up with the page protector. You see that scrapbook.com page protector there. Those are the Design A page protectors I use. And I just want to line this up. I didn't do it last time, so maybe it's good that I made that mistake, because I just want to make sure that this insert fully covers the page below it until it doesn't, right? So that edge, like the whole left-hand side of it, should all cover up the spread below it. And then just the outside is where you'll see the spread below it. So the way that I cut the acetate, it was ending in the middle of that see-through part, and you could see it, and I didn't like it. So I just hacked it up and took out that piece where it was overlapping, and the overall piece of acetate will hold plenty strong. Now, I cut out the part because there was a lot of waiting for this to dry, because I actually forgot to glue the back part, and I kept wondering, does it keep separating on the back part? Well, I didn't glue it, that's why. So I cut out all that part, so you won't see me glue the back side, but if you're making something like this, do make sure that you glue it down on both sides. It seems like an obvious thing that I somehow just forgot. So here I am holding it, and there was a lot of this. I cut out most of it, so I don't know where it's going to stop, but yeah. So the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm just going to touch up my scallops that I had hand drawn on the other side where the yellow is. And I'm going to add some scallops to the piece of yellow paper that didn't have any, just to tie the two little chunks of yellow together. And I'm just making them very thin scallops so they don't go down very far. Just a touch, just a tiny little element. So here I am noticing they're still not sticking together. But I had to cut that part out because obviously this video is super long, but I did want you to see how it all comes together, because that's really the satisfying part, right? So look at how it looks. I really love it. Yeah, it's great. I'm so pleased with it. You're going to see some close-ups of it as well. And I just wanted to give you a quick shout out to my Patreon supporters. All these folks help make this channel happen. And so great big thanks to them. I do a lot of live streaming over on Patreon. So I know that you haven't been seeing a whole lot of process videos. There will be more. I have a backlog. I had some technical problems with my footage, but you'll be seeing seeing more regular videos from me, so keep an eye out on my YouTube channel. Here's how this looks at the end. I really love those little flip up elements, and it just allows me to get a couple of extra photos and a couple of little comments in there as well. Her little apartment. It looks so much better now. All the things are just laying on the floor in this photo, but still, and that kitchen needs to be fixed. But there'll be pictures of that in another Project Life spread, I'm hoping. Let's knock on wood. Little trip to IKEA in between leaving one place and moving into the other place. And yeah, I really like how this one turned out. I hope you enjoyed the process. If you did, please leave me a comment. I'd love to hear from you, or leave me a thumbs up. That does help my channel with the algorithm and all that jazz. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a really great scrappy week, and I'll see you next time.